Hello dear learners, this is Dr.Kaveri, Professor, Department of Political Science, Christo Jayanti College. Today I am going to explain you something about J.S. Mill, a great economist as well as a political thinker, his contributions towards the political science. So let me start with an introduction. So we say that J.S. Mill was a great essayist, economist and a philosopher. He, along with Bentham, that is his tutor, popularized the concept of greatest happiness to the greatest number of people. He put forward a new concept that what a government must do is what the majority of the masses wishes to enjoy. He also says that it is better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied, better Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. So when we look in terms of his early life, it has been said that J.S. Mill was born in 1806 and his father was James Mill, who was a close associate of the and a friend of Jeremy Bentham. So J.S. Mill began his education at the early age of 3 years and then he learnt Greek. At the age of 8 years, he read most of the Greek classics and began learning Latin, algebra, geometry and philosophy. And by the age of 12, he began to study the logic, and at the age of 13, he read political economy written by Adam Smith and Ricardo. At the early age of 15, he took up psychology and started delivering lectures. And at the age of 16, he founded a utilitarian society. And then he became a member of a speculative debating committee and a political economic club. In 1856, he joined the British East India Company, and in the same year, he got elected for the House of Commons. But then later on, in 1870, he lost the election. Now, let's look into his contributions, his works. So, he has written n number of books like System of Logic, Principles of Political Economy, On Liberty, Representative Government, Utilitarianism, The Subjection of Women, out of which one of the most important book, the contribution is On Liberty, which was published in the year 1859. Let's talk about his political ideas. So the very first thing he talks about is liberty. So On Liberty, as I said, this is one of the most important contribution, considered to be a great piece of work. So he's also been referred as a champion defender of the individual liberty, and according to him, self-development is not possible without liberty. Thus, freedom of thought should be given to the human for their well-being. He advocated individual freedom with the very minimum interference of the state. And he divides liberty of actions into two, and they are being referred as the self-regarding action and others regarding action. So what is self-regarding action, or what do you understand by others regarding action? So self-regarding action, it means the possible consequences, good or bad, are borne by the individual. That means to say, whatever I do for myself, that is not applicable or not suitable only to me, my good and bad will have an effect on the society as well. Okay, so that's what you call it as a self-regarding action. That is, whatever the possible consequences that you're going to get it out of the good or bad is being borne by an individual himself. Okay, let me give an example. Supposing I smoke. Okay, so when I smoke, the possibilities of the impact, the consequences, that is good or bad, is being borne only by me. Then you call it as a self-regarding action. Other regarding action, in a sense, when the possible consequences of good or bad are borne by others. So same example, I'll take it here. I smoke. Okay, it is for myself, but it is not only me who is getting affected, but you can also find the people who are in and around me are also getting affected. So this you call it as an others regarding action. And then he also spoke about individual liberty. So Mill was of the view that the interference of the government in the life of the individual was to be reduced to the minimum. Every individual was to be allowed to develop himself on his own lines because he knows what is good and what is bad for him. Mill contended that diversity and originality as both necessary and desirable for the progress of the people. The free play of individuality must lead to the differentiation among them, and any effort by the government to control the well-being, monotony and mediocrity, which is not in the better interest of the society. So Mill was very clear that there can be no self-development without individual development. Talking about freedom of thought, so according to Mill, unless men are free to form and maintain their own opinions, they cannot develop their mental well-being, on which everybody depends. Freedom of thought is absolutely limited. Therefore, Mill says the liberty of individual must be thus far limited. He must not make himself a nuisance to other people. Individuality is desirable and diversity is not an evil but useful. The free development of individuality is one of the essential of human well-being. So according to Mill, even a single dissenting opinion should not be suppressed because it is disgracing to human race. Its denial could possibly result in an exchanging error of truth. It is therefore very essential that everyone should be given essential basic liberties for the expression of self. Mill stressed the need for the necessity of variety of opinion. He believed that liberty and self-government should go hand in hand. His conception of liberty has a direct relevance to the theory of utility of happiness. He regarded liberty as a necessary means for the development of individuality, which is the ultimate source of happiness. Coming to the minimum interference of the state, so Mill's conception of liberty strongly advocates the individual freedom with a very minimum interference from the state. He contended that liberty as a very vital for the human existence because it is the man's mind that changes the society, and only free discussion can promote fresh and fruitful ideas. So Mill believes that society cannot be called free if it does not grant absolute liberty to its people. Whatever may be, it is in the form of the government. Talking about the development of personality, he says that as the development of personality is the goal of human effort, government must be capable of helping the governed to reach this goal. Government is the instrument through which the intellectual capacities of all the people must be improved and increased. Therefore, Mill argued that the government must perform that the best qualities of the citizens are developed and can be utilized. Such a thing, Mill believed, is possible only in the representative government. Next, talking about the minorities. Okay, so who are minorities? So basically, J.S. Mill is referred as a crusader of the minorities' rights. According to him, if democracy has to survive, the minorities must have a special representation. His minority rights do not deal with the religious or the linguistic minorities. Lot of majority vote system that prevailed in the country. A candidate is getting a majority was elected. As a result of the person who voted for the defeated candidate get no representation at all. If such a thing happened in many constituencies, a large number of persons went unrepresented altogether. In order to secure a proper representation of the minority, Mill supported a system of proportional representation. So Sir Thomas Hare in England was the first to propose a parliamentary election so that each section of the society get represented proportionally. He advocated the plurality of votings to the higher educated citizens, taxpayers, property owners. The simple reason is that educated people cannot be fooled because of the superior intellect and high character that save the state and promote the interest of the state. Vice versa, taxpayers. Taxpayers pay through their hard-earned money and will be responsible for discharging their duties as a citizen. Property owners will have a personal interest in the work of the government as they are going affected by the policies of the government. Hence, they discharge their duties towards the state, respond. He recommends the plurality of voting because he considers the intelligence, educated, and superiors counts are less than the ignorance, stupidity, and indifferences. So the next he talks about the plurality of voting. So Mill, though did not oppose the adult franchise, but he was of the view that the plural voting system has to be given to people those who are less in number, like as he said that people with the education, that is higher qualified, taxpayers, educated people cannot be fooled easily. So the plurality of voting system has to be provided to these people. And he talks about the tax. So Mill insisted on the tax and property as a qualification of an voter. He also spoke about compulsory education, and Mill was very much in favor of compulsory education, where he says that it has to be provided by the state. However, he feared that compulsory education might sometimes result in returning out of the people offered a single pattern determined by the governmental bureau. He believes in the concept of public voting. He advocated open or public voting in contrast with the secret ballot. He argued that the value of effectiveness of the voting depended upon the manner in which the franchise was exercised. So Mill argued that the duty of voting, like any other public duty, should be performed under the eye and the criticisms of the public. So next he talks about the best garment. So according to him, which is the best garment? So he says that the best garment is not necessarily that which is the most efficient. It is the one which serves the purpose of the political education and training its citizens. The most important element of the good government is the promotion of virtues and intelligence of the people. The next he talks about property. So Mill did not consider the right to property in the land as a sacred on the ground that no man made the land. So it is the original inheritance of the all species. He was for the taxation. He was for the taxation of rent, which affects the natural monopoly of the wealth. And according to him, individual was entitled of the wealth, was entitled to use his own facilities and had the right to pass on what was his own to other. So the latter has a right to accept and enjoy the same. Mill contended that the institution of property was necessary for the good and the progress of mankind. So in Mill's view, those who own the property will have a personal interest in working for the government, as they are going to be affected by the policies of the government. Hence, they discharge their duties towards the state and the state's responsibility. So his ideas on women, he advocated the right to vote being given to the women. Mill's case of women's equality reflects his utilitarian roots. He argues that subordination of women is not only wrong in itself, but one of the chief hindrance to the human improvement. According to him, men are typically superior to women in physical strength, which leads to the presumptions that men are superior to women in all the areas, despite the fact that there is no proof to support the claim. In respect, Mill says the predicament of the women parallels that of the slaves. Being physically weaker, they are dependent on the law and society for the protection. Next, Mill has contributed his ideas on the parliament, but however, we see that Mill is totally different from the other thinkers, where Mill was against the payment of the salaries and allowances to the member of the parliament. He did not want the people of the high caliber should be governed by the people of the low caliber. So all this is about J.S. Mill. I hope you have understood. Thank you so much.